Hi, welcome back to the Fix or Repair DIY channel. Now, this being the first truck that I've ever owned, I always wondered about those grill lights that some trucks had. Like the Ford Raptor, those 3 lights in the middle of the grill, they really stood out and made the truck really noticeable. But unfortunately, my truck didn't have them. And I think being visible is really important in today's distracted world.
Now, some trucks you see on the road have these lights, while others, like mine, do not have these lights. So what's the difference? Any vehicle wider than 80 inches wide is required to have these types of marker lights. And that led to a rat hole of going down the FHA, Department of Transportation, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 393. And if you enjoy this sort of thing, you can learn more than you ever really wanted to know about regulations for marker lighting. So back to the Raptor. The Raptor is required to have these because it's 87 inches wide. However, my F-150 is 79.9 inches wide, so just a little bit more narrow than requiring these marker lights. So my truck is not required to have these marker lights because it's less than 80 inches wide, but I still like the idea of better forward visibility, even if my truck is 0.1 inches away from being considered wide. A quick search showed a lot of light kits for sale in the market for these types of lights. So I ended up going underground. I contacted my friends at Underground Lighting and they hooked me up with a universal kit, which just requires power and ground. So let's get those lights installed. First thing I like to do with any project like this is to bench test everything. So what we have here is the main harness. The main harness goes into the junction, and then I've got 3 feeds of 3 LEDs here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to light this up, first of all, on the bench by plugging in all the LEDs. So what we're going to do is remove that, plug it in until it clicks, and then add the third one over here. Okay, we got a good snap. All 3 of them are plugged in, so we'll just orient the lights so that we can see them. I've got a bench supply. I'm going to set it up for about 13 volts. That should be fine. And then we'll just connect the black to black, which is the negative, and then the red to positive. And there we go. We have 3 working lights. As you can see, they're quite bright. So it bench tests, and it draws about 0.4 of an amp. If we run that up to, say, like 14 volts, it's going to be about ½ an amp. So 7 watts total is what all these 3 LEDs are drawing. Okay, so let's go install them. Now the electrical part of the project. Since I'm using a universal kit, I'm going to tap into an existing hot line from the fuse panel. So let's open up the fuse panel, and I'm going to locate the correct fuse, which is based on this diagram. So you might want to pause the video. I've tried to orient the diagram to the correct location. Let's pull the existing fuse, and then what we're going to do is, this is what's called a fuse tap. We're going to put that existing fuse back into the fuse tap, which is for the existing circuit that we're tapping into. In this case, this is a lighting circuit for the OEM lights. And then I'm going to add a new fuse. This new fuse is for the grill lights that we're adding. So we have to push that in, make sure it's pushed in all the way. Probably 10 amps is overkill for this, but that's fine. Now we put the fuse tap back into the fuse panel in the open slot that was created when we pulled that fuse. And what we're left with is a pigtail. And that pigtail is a switched circuit now, which should only come on when the truck goes on. It's a very tight fit to get that fuse tap into there. Make sure you don't pull any existing fuses from their sockets. Now I'm going to hook up my voltmeter and check the power from there between the fuse tap
and ground, and there should be nothing when the truck is off. And as soon as I turn the switch on for the truck, we should get anywhere from 12 to 14 volts. Now we start the installation of the lights with some surface prep. As you might imagine, your grill gets blasted with everything from bugs to road grime, so it's important that you clean these areas with some type of alcohol swab to make sure that the double-sided tape has something to stick to. I'm going to be sticking my lights to the bottom of these three areas, not the top, so that's where I'm focusing my efforts on. The next step is to look for areas to route the wires, and I'm going to need to route them underneath this rubber flap, but I want to stay away from those radiators back there. So I'm going to have to pull these clips and get this rubber panel off. You know, I've been popping body clips off of cars for the better part of my life, and I've never had more trouble than getting these ones out from Ford. They're very soft and they're very aggressive threads on them. They're really meant to be a one-time use. So I probably broke about 2 of them trying to get them out. And so what I would do is, if you're going to do this job, order a few in advance. Okay, now we have the rubber covered peeled back, and I can route the wires through there all the way back to the fuse panel back there. Let's put the double stick tape on each of the LED units. So we're just going to strip back one side of the adhesive first of all and put it on the LED unit. Try to get it as straight as you possibly can so you're contacting as much of the surface area, and push it down real hard, as hard as you can, because it really depends on the contact that you can get. And then we'll peel back the other side when we're ready to install it. All right, here's the part of the job where you'll wish that you had 4 very small hands, because this can be tricky. So first of all, you're trying to feed the unit. You've pulled off the other side of the adhesive, so the sticky side is live right now. You don't want to contaminate that. So you want to very carefully guide it into position from the back. You can't, unfortunately, pull it in from the front. So pull it in from the back, position it, and when you're happy with it, what you're going to do is you're going to push down from the top of it. That's what the screwdriver is helping me do here. So focus on trying to get it aligned correctly as best you can inside the middle of that little cutout hole. Get it all lined up, and then press down as hard as you can with the adhesive from the top. So I've got it lined up now. What I'm trying to do is use the screwdriver, trying from the front and the back. Really, the front side is the only way you can do this, and then press down as hard as you can with that screwdriver to set the adhesive down into that cutout. And you can see I've got all 3 of them positioned correctly now. And then what I'm doing is a real quick smoke test. I'm setting up the lights right into the battery just to test it out. Now, if this adhesive ever has a problem, what I'll probably end up doing is using a little dab of epoxy in the front. Here you can see what I've done to run the wiring from behind. There's the ground lug that I'm using, and then that runs straight into the fuse panel. I've used a piece of heat shrink tubing over the pigtail at the junction. Here's the first test with the key on and lights on, and I love that look, very noticeable.